Chapter 4. Holding on to me tightly, he carried me down the halls and then through a door. As soon as we had exited, there was a black limo. The man I believed to be as Miles opened the door for us. Mr. Wells swiftly stepped in with both of us and sat me down on the warm, inviting seats. "I had them heated for you, Miss Karen," Miles said. I nodded as a thank you. "Would you like something to drink? There is wine, or maybe you would prefer Scotch," Mr. Wells asked. I shook my head. "Perhaps a vodka?" I shook my head again. I had never had a drink in my life. I had no intentions to, even though legally I was now of age to drink. As of now, I could drink in 3 provinces. Otherwise, I needed to be 19 to drink all over Canada. "Hot chocolate?" I asked. My throat felt raw. I wanted something warm. A peculiar smile formed on Mr. Wells' face. "I buy you for $15,000, put you in an expensive limo, and all you want is a hot chocolate." I nodded shyly. "The cheap, rich, and creamy kind is the best." "Buy Carnation," I said quietly. "Miles, is there any cheap, rich, and creamy hot chocolate?" Mr. Wells asked. He was acting light and humorous despite the circumstance. "Well, I don't know what cheap brands are anymore, but yes, there is a box of rich and creamy hot chocolate. Would you like some?" Miles asked. I nodded again. I watched as Miles, a 6-foot man with a neatly kept blonde beard and tidy, kept there made hot chocolate for me. There was a machine that poured hot water when he pressed a button. "Would you like some Kahlua or Baileys to add some flavor?" Miles asked. "No, just the hot chocolate is fine," I answered. "Here you go," he said. I took the cup from him and wrapped my hands around it. The smell was inviting. Smelling the chocolate made me realize I hadn't had any food, and I don't know how long. The hours since I had woken up had all felt like a blur. "Are you still cold?" Mr. Wells asked. I nodded. My hands as they warmed sent goosebumps up my arms. Miles reached in an overhanging cupboard, and out came a blanket. He handed it to Mr. Wells, and he wrapped my shoulders with it. The limo started to move. "Thank you," I said. "I like it when you actually speak," Mr. Wells said. "Your voice is like music to my ears." I looked at him. His eyes were a warm brown with a hint of gold. His facial features were sharp. His hair was the color of golden brown that matched his eyes, despite looking black from the stage. His teeth shone an impeccable white smile. He was sensible, and regrettably handsome. He was acting so kind to me. It was making it hard for me to hate him. I didn't know how to reply to him. I darted my eyes to my hot chocolate and sipped it. It was the perfect temperature to drink now. It warmed my throat as it went through. I tried to speak up. I had every intention to. I was going to say something along the lines of, "I know you probably aren't as bad as the drunks and the women that were trying to buy me, and I wanted to thank you for saving me from them." I would have been humiliated. You didn't humiliate me. But instead of words, I sobbed. I began to think of never seeing my parents again. I started thinking about how hurt they would be not seeing me. Would they see me again? I also thought of my cat, Star, and my dog, Duke. They would both curl up in bed and sleep with me at night, keeping me warm. I didn't know what I would do without them. I thought about my friends at school. I was supposed to graduate this year. I was supposed to walk onto stage and receive my high school diploma so I could go to college and become a veterinarian. I was supposed to find a man who I could love for the rest of my life. I would marry that man. We would have children, but not our own. They had to be adopted, because a lot of children didn't have families. I wanted to give them that. And the Olympics. An Olympic swimmer. I was being scouted. Tears fell down my eyes as I tried to drink my hot chocolate. I couldn't say anything. I'm sorry, I sobbed. I cried big tears. I was loud. The limo was moving at a highway speed, it seemed. It was heading towards a destination that I would not know of. Mr. Wells rested a hand on my shoulder. Shh, he comforted. I continued to cry and drink through my hot chocolate. Miles took it away from me when he saw my hands begin to shake more. I curled up into a ball on my seat and buried my head in my knees. Mr. Wells continued to rub my back. But what help was that supposed to give me? He was taking me away, after all. I tilted my body to the left to lean against the arm cushion of the seat. I moved away from the touch of the man that had saved me from the drunks, but bought me for his own pleasure. I shut my eyes and wrapped myself in the blanket. Neither Mr. Wells nor Miles touched me after that. I shut my eyes and cried myself to sleep. I will see you later, I said. I was walking away from my best friend, Reed. We'd been at a friend's house party. We were seniors and our group of youth group friends got together and just had an enjoyable house party, reminiscing about our years of school together. Are you sure you don't want to ride home? It's starting to rain, Reed asked. No, my house isn't that far away from here. I don't mind walking a few blocks. Plus, if I got through the park, I'm practically almost there, I answered. Suit yourself. Just make sure to kick any man in the groin if he tries to come get you. I mean it. Be safe, he said. I will, don't worry. How else am I supposed to humiliate you as I give my valedictorian speech at grad? Ha ha, very funny. See you tomorrow at church. See you tomorrow, I replied, and began to walk off. I looked up at the starry night sky as the rain began to pour. I wasn't expecting it to pour so fast. That was just perfect. All I had was a t-shirt and jeans. I didn't have a coat at all, but it was just water, not like I wasn't used to it. I didn't normally like cutting through the park at night. It was so dark. There used to be a couple bright overhanging lights, but they had burnt out over the years, and no one bothered to replace it. I also didn't normally walk around alone at night either. I always tried to take precautions when it came to keeping myself protected. I thought of just walking the normal distance to my house, but because of the amount of rain, I decided it was going to continue with my plan to walk through the park. I did for a moment stop and look up at the pouring rain, though. It had been a hot day. The rain was kind of nice, but it was a bit chilly. I turned around slowly, looking around me. My eyes made a glance at two men in jackets that were walking behind me. I felt creeped out by them, so I started to walk again. I walked briskly, holding my arms tightly together. I glanced back and they seemed to be keeping pace with me. I started to run. It could have just been my imagination, but it scared me a little. I turned to my left to go up a flight of 10 stairs that was the entrance into the park. I stopped at the top. I didn't see the men anymore. It must have been a coincidence, or they passed by. I decided instead of going home, I was going to sit on the swings and swing in the rain. I was already wet anyways. Just a couple of minutes, I said lightly to myself. I always enjoyed the swings. It was a perfect time to daydream. I just lightly swung back and forth, running my feet against the dirt that had turned into mud. I was thinking about how I was going to make my speech on graduating day. I was also thinking about the church service tomorrow. They were making a service for the grads and our accomplishments, as well as our plans for the future. As I thought about these things, I felt a hand grasp my mouth tightly and a man toppled over me, pressing my chest to the muddy ground. I struggled, trying to push the person away. I managed to turn around to see who it could be. It was the men in the black jackets. My eyes widened and I tried to fight back. His hand was firmly over my mouth so I couldn't scream or shout. I moved my arms, I wriggled and kicked. I tried to knee him in the groin area, like Reed said to, but the other black jacket man pinned me down. The man that held my mouth tight reached with his free hand in the pocket and pulled out a rag of some sort, and then pressed it against my mouth. Soon my eyes began to close. As my eyes began to close, the only thing I could think about was I should have taken Reed up on his offer. If I had taken him up on his offer, he would have drove me home. I would have been safe. I thought about how paranoid I always am about never walking in the dark alone. Why did I lapse in judgment? Maybe this wouldn't have happened. Was I going to die? Karen. Shh. Calm down. It's all right. Karen. I began to hear. Someone was shaking me. I felt panicked. My eyes shot open. It was just a bad dream. It was all just a bad dream. I wasn't taken. I wasn't stripped naked. I wasn't bid on. I looked up and my heart sank. It was all true. The dream I had. I remembered what happened to me that led me to this limo. My careless thoughts of I will make it home no problem was so stupid. I was scared. Mr. Wells began to reach his hands towards me. I moved back. Even though his handsome face wasn't scary, I was still in the moment scared of him. Water, Mr. Wells said. Miles began to pour a glass of water. He handed the glass of water to Mr. Wells, and he slowly reached his hand with the glass to me. I'm not going to hurt you. I just need you to trust me, he said. I looked at him with wide eyes, but they softened. Ever so slightly, my hand reached for the glass of water, and I drank it. You had a nightmare? He asked. I nodded. What was it about? He asked. I want you to speak. He said. It will help. I hesitated before telling him. I opened my mouth to begin to speak. I was at a house party. It was 5 of us, a group of friends from church. We were celebrating that in the next months we were going to be graduating from high school. When I was leaving, my best friend asked if I was sure I didn't need a ride home. I said I didn't, that I would be fine. But there were men in these black jackets. I shouldn't have. I started crying again. All I had to do was take that ride and I would be sleeping in my bed with Duke and Star. I'm sad because all I had to say was yes, I would like a ride home, and I would be able to sleep with my cat and my dog. I would be at church service on the Sunday, and I would be giving the valedictorian speech at my high school graduation. I want Duke and Star, I sobbed. I was a sobbing mess. The makeup that the man in the shorts had put on me had left me with a raccoon face. Mr. Wells rested his hands once again on my shoulder to try and comfort me. I didn't flinch away this time. He took the glass from my hands and set it on the floor of the limo and embraced me in a hug. Are Duke and Star your pets? He asked. Yes, I sobbed. I can't sleep without them. They always sleep with me. Star nuzzles against my face, and Duke always nuzzles himself between my legs to keep me warm. Here I am, and all I can think about is Duke and Star. It was pathetic. Shouldn't I be crying for my parents? I guess Duke and Star were my protection, but they couldn't protect me right now. It's okay, Mr. Wells whispered into my ear. I didn't know why I was letting him hug me now. I didn't see Mr. Wells had turned to Miles and mouthed something.